Lost generation, 1883 to 1900. Now, if you were born between 1883 and 1900, you weren't just lost like after a few too many at a Friday night party. Nope. You were lost because life was like a series of really bad sequels. Just when you thought it couldn't get worse, boom, World War I happened. Imagine turning 17 and getting a free ticket to the trenches instead of a Sweet 16 party. This was when you celebrated your youth by dodging bullets and cuddling up to mud like the worst camping trip ever. And if that wasn't traumatic enough, they got hit with the Spanish flu in 1918, which killed over 50 million people worldwide. Seriously, this generation just couldn't catch a break. It is like life handed them a permanent L. But wait, there is more. After somehow surviving all that, they faced the Great Depression in the 1930s. Imagine you are already broke, and then the economy drops a bombshell, job losses, breadlines, and of course, more uncertainty. But hey, not everything was gloom and doom. This was also the age of the Jazz Age, the Harlem Renaissance, and the Roaring Twenties. People tried to party their troubles away, even if only for a night. Despite all the chaos, the Lost generation gave us some heavyweights like Ernest Hemingway and F. Scott Fitzgerald, who wrote novels about, well, being lost. On the bright side, we also got Albert Einstein, who redefined physics, and Alexander Fleming, who stumbled upon penicillin and basically revolutionized medicine. So, even if they were lost, they managed to find some silver linings along the way. Greatest Generation, 1901 to 1927. Next up, we have got the Greatest Generation. And no, they didn't give themselves that title. I mean, who would be that cocky? They got the name because they lived through the worst of the Great Depression and still managed to survive World War II. Talk about resilience. The fun began with the stock market crash of 1929. One day you are thinking of buying your third Model T, and the next day, your stocks are worth as much as Monopoly money. The economy tanked harder than a reality TV star's reputation, and suddenly, everyone was lining up for bread. It wasn't just a financial crisis, it was a full-on societal collapse. Oh, and let's not forget the Dust Bowl. Imagine trying to grow crops in the middle of a giant dust storm. Farmers were losing their livelihoods, and entire families were forced to migrate, searching for work and food. And just when they thought things couldn't get any worse, World War II knocked on the door. World War II was the ultimate surprise sequel, but this time, the stakes were even higher. Over 60 million people lost their lives, making it one of the deadliest conflicts in human history. It was like going from fighting in one world war to raising kids who had to fight in another. The universe really put this generation to the test. But after all that mess, they managed to lay the groundwork for the modern world. Alan Turing cracked the Enigma code. Meanwhile, Grace Hopper was busy creating the first compiler for computer programming. So, yeah, they were pretty great. Not the happiest generation, but definitely the hardest working. Silent generation, 1928 to 1945. These are your super strict, no-nonsense grandparents who seem immune to the concept of chilling out. Born between 1928 and 1945, they were molded by the harsh realities of post-Webtoon and the Great Depression. If you think your childhood was rough, try working in a factory at age 10. This was a time when kids weren't playing on playgrounds. They were playing with assembly lines. And by playing, I mean working long hours to help put food on the table. Fun wasn't a priority. Survival was. They learned the value of hard work, frugality, and most importantly, not complaining. Ever. Socially, the silent generation also had to experience the early days of the Cold War, with all the paranoia and fear that came with it. Air raid drills, bomb shelters, and constant worry about nuclear annihilation were just part of the daily routine. It was like living in a dystopian novel, but with worse haircuts. While we are out here posting avocado toast on Instagram, the silent gen would have just posted toast. Yeah, they were called silent because they didn't complain much. But honestly, they were also silent about their emotions. Therapy wasn't a thing back then. It was more like, walk it off, you will be fine. Baby boomers, 1946 to 1964. Now comes the baby boomers, aka the generation that loves to remind us how much harder things were back in their day. Born between 1946 and 1964, they came into the world when soldiers returned home from World War II and got a little too busy. It was like the whole world got a memo. Let's repopulate this place pronto. Hospitals were overflowing, schools couldn't keep up, and suburbs sprang up faster than you can say white picket fence. Baby boomers grew up during a time of unprecedented economic growth, fueled by post-war optimism, with dreams of Leave It to Beaver-style families and Elvis shaking things up. But it wasn't all sunshine and rock and roll. As they got older, boomers became the original rebels. They led the charge in civil rights, women's liberation, and anti-war protests. They were the original social justice warriors, minus the hashtags. The 1960s and 70s were all about challenging the status quo, whether it was segregation, the Vietnam War, or traditional gender roles. This generation wasn't afraid to speak out, whether it was through sit-ins, marches, or Woodstock. Fast forward a few decades, and today, boomers are either enjoying retirement or trying to understand TikTok. Many are living longer, healthier lives than previous generations, thanks to advancements in healthcare. And let's not forget, they are also credited or blamed for the housing boom, corporate culture, and a lot of the economic policies that shaped the modern world. Their motto is, work hard, play harder, and maybe hoard a little wealth while you are at it. Generation X, 1965 to 1980. Next up is Generation X, the middle child of generations, usually overlooked but always hustling. Born between 1965 and 1980, they were the original latchkey kids, coming home to empty houses because their parents were busy working. These are the kids who knew how to make their own dinner by age 8, not out of choice, but necessity. Gen X grew up with MTV, the original Star Wars trilogy, and all the neon, big hair, and spandex you can imagine. But it wasn't all pop culture and Pac-Man. They also lived through the Cold War. You think Y2K was scary? Try living with the constant threat of nuclear war looming in the background. Duck and cover drills at school were as common as gym class. When it comes to work, Gen X became known for their independence and adaptability. They were the first to push for work-life balance, a phrase they practically invented. From the early days of casual Fridays to the birth of telecommuting, Gen X realized that working yourself to death might not be the best idea. And unlike boomers, they didn't make a lot of noise about it. They just got things done quietly, with a soundtrack of Nirvana, U2, and The Cure playing in the background. But Gen X also faced major economic downturns, like the oil crisis in the 70s and the dot-com bust in the early 2000s. They learned the hard way about financial uncertainty and became experts at pivoting, whether that meant changing careers or learning new skills in their 30s and 40s. If the millennials are known for side hustles, it is because Gen X invented the second job out of necessity, not just ambition. Millennials, 1981 to 1996. Oh, millennials. The generation everyone loves to blame for everything from the decline of chain restaurants to the rise of avocado toast. Born between 1981 and 1996, these digital natives were the first to experience dial-up internet, flip phones, and the existential dread of student loans bigger than a small country's GDP. Millennials are like the Swiss Army knives of generations, versatile, adaptable, and always ready for the next big thing. Be it a new app, a new career, or a new side hustle. They came of age with the internet and were the first to truly understand the struggle of trying to pick between paying rent or affording guacamole on the side. This generation also saw the world change overnight. They were teenagers during 9/11, young adults during the 2008 financial crisis, and some were even stuck in the job market during the COVID-19 pandemic. Talk about a rough start to adulting. It is no wonder millennials redefine success, not with white picket fences or a 9-to-5 job, but with experiences, digital nomad lifestyles, and turning hobbies into careers. You name it, they have got a side hustle for it. They have also been at the forefront of major social movements, like the Me Too movement, Black Lives Matter, and climate change activism. And let's set the record straight. Millennials aren't lazy. They are just redefining what it means to work hard in a world where financial stability isn't guaranteed. Forget the traditional career ladder. They are climbing a jungle gym of freelance gigs, startups, and the gig economy. Generation Z, 1997 to 2012. Now we are on to Generation Z, the digital natives who were practically born with Wi-Fi in their cribs. Imagine never knowing a world without Google. That is Gen Z in a nutshell. They got smartphones before they got driver's licenses, and they can code in their sleep. If millennials were good with tech, Gen Z practically has it in their DNA. These are the meme kings and queens who turned TikTok into a cultural phenomenon, where a 15-second dance can make someone famous. Social media isn't just an app for them. It is a way of life. But don't be fooled by their love of filters and viral challenges. Gen Z is more than just screen-obsessed. They are incredibly socially conscious, tackling issues like climate change, mental health, and social justice with the same energy they use for Fortnite marathons. And speaking of mental health, this generation is much more open about it than any generation before. For them, therapy isn't taboo. It is an essential part of self-care. They break down barriers, whether it is through protests, activism, or just hitting send on a well-crafted tweet. Gen Z is the first generation to communicate more in emojis than words. But they are making real change. They have grown up in an era of school shootings, political disruption, and a global pandemic. So it is no surprise that they are a bit more cynical, but also determined to create a better future, be it through voting, raising awareness, or launching online movements. They are shaping the world, one viral video at a time. Generation Alpha, 2013 to present. Finally, we have got Generation Alpha, the littlest kids who are already out-teching us all. Born entirely in the 21st century, these kids are the first to live in a world where AI, VR, and smart everything are the norm. Imagine a generation that doesn't just use tech, but wears it, eats with it, and probably even dreams in emojis. Yeah, that is Gen Alpha for you. These kids are practically coming out of the womb, knowing how to swipe and tap. Their first words aren't mama or dada. They are more like, hey Siri, play Baby Shark. And honestly, they don't just use technology. It is like a fifth limb at this point. Their classrooms are virtual, their toys are smart, and their bedtime stories might as well be narrated by Alexa. From AI-powered learning apps to immersive VR experiences, Gen Alpha's education is already more high-tech than the office you work in. And they're doing all this while mastering the art of multitasking, watching YouTube, building Minecraft worlds, and commanding VR assistants all at once. But let's not overlook their potential. As the most connected and informed generation, they could very well be the AI-enhanced, eco-conscious superheroes we've been waiting for. Gen Alpha is predicted to be even more socially aware than Gen Z, with a stronger focus on tackling climate change, ethical AI, and global health crises. They are young now, but they have got the tools and tech to change the world. Let's just hope they use their powers for good, and not just to rack up views on their latest dance challenge. Thank you for sticking through till the end. If you enjoyed this video, consider leaving a like button. Perhaps if you're interested in more videos like this one, hit the subscribe and notification bell to always know when the new video is up. It's free, and you can always change your mind.